All right.
Why is it showing me yesterday?
Believe we are live on YouTube. I believe we are live on Periscope. So let's give it a whirl, shall we, folks? It is Friday, April 13th. So Friday the 13th. And it is a busy day. It is a busy, busy day in the news, busy day in the country. Lot to discuss. I'm on YouTube here. Let's see if the Periscope is working as well. I'm trying to go live on YouTube and Periscope. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So definitely press the share button to get it out to more people. This is the first nice day in New York City, probably in 3 months. So it's nice and hot out, and I will be having a cocktail when I get off of here. Press the share button. Let's get this going. It's Friday, so not always a ton of viewers, but we'll get it going. And by the way, just as a reminder, since YouTube is trying to make it as difficult as humanly possible for you to actually see videos from the channels you're subscribed to, you have to not just press the subscribe button, you also have to click the bell next to the subscribe button so that you get the people who you subscribe to get their videos. A lot of people telling me they're not seeing my videos, they're not being notified. Jimmy Dore has had this problem. Kyle Kalinske has had this problem. Mike Figueredo of the Humanist Report has had this problem. YouTube, let's just say, seems to be, instead of making it easier and more accessible for people to see content, they're trying to make sure that less and less people could see the content they're subscribed to or they like. So, wonder why. I wonder why. No problem with CNN getting their content seen, but we should be able to get our content seen and let the viewer decide. Huh? Let the viewer decide. I digress. Reminders, patreon.com/Jordan Sheridan Reports. That's where you'll find my podcast. The new one is up from yesterday. You'll find video diaries where I go behind the scenes of what's going on. I didn't do one for today yet. I'm going to do it after this. I went to a fundraiser last night. It was off the record, so I can't tell you who it was, but I went to a fundraiser last night for a prominent progressive politician, and was that interesting. I didn't donate because I'm a journalist. I don't give to campaigns. But I did go, and it was very interesting. So I'll be talking about that for my patrons in my video diary. Now, patreon.com/Jordan Sheridan Reports. Go to jordansheridan.com for my email list. We want to communicate directly with you. And as always, share this video. Now, if you didn't notice, James Comey, the former FBI director, is going on a book tour. He wrote a book about, everything that happened while he was in the Trump administration, the FBI director there. He gave one hell of a little tease in an interview with Good Morning America this morning, saying that he doesn't know if Trump peed on prostitutes in a shower in Moscow. So basically, this man of integrity, as the Democrats once said, and then they hated him, and then they loved him again. This man of integrity was kind of just throwing out salacious scandals, kind of floating in the air. I don't know if Trump peed on prostitutes in a golden shower in Moscow. I mean, I'm not going to buy his book. I could care less, but it's a good tease. I'll give him that. So the media is obviously covering that aspect. Him saying he doesn't think Trump is connected at all to truth and norms. So they're focusing on that. But I found something he said very, very, very interesting. And it related to the Hillary Clinton email investigation. Now, a lot of you might not like this, but when I was at the Young Turks, I said it as well. I personally, of all the things to be critical of Hillary Clinton for, I personally wasn't that focused on the email investigation. I thought it was kind of stupid for her to do that, have a private email server in her basement. I did think she was trying to hide things. I did think she was trying to skirt around federal records, protocols and things like that. But, you got the Clinton Foundation and all the wars and being bought off by the banks and big oil and big pharma. I didn't cover the email thing that much. However, when I did cover the email thing, I pointed out, well, if I did a private email server in my basement as a government employee and didn't follow government record rules, I'd probably be in jail. I think you'd be in jail too. But because it was Hillary Clinton, we don't need to worry about that. Don't need to worry about that. Well, Comey actually said something that leads me to believe that potentially Loretta Lynch, who was the Attorney General at the time, might have been conflicted in the Hillary Clinton investigation. I'm going to read this right now from the New York Post. Ex-FBI Director James Comey savages President Trump in his best-selling new tell-all, A Higher Loyalty, but also skewers former Attorney General Loretta Lynch for her dubious handling of the Hillary Clinton email probe. Lynch, wrote Comey, had a, quote, tortured, half-out, half-in approach to the investigation, and he said he even considered calling for a special prosecutor to be appointed to oversee the probe because of Lynch's ambivalence. Quote, but I decided it would be brutally unfair to do that, he wrote. A world-class FBI team had investigated Hillary Clinton for a year, and all of them, to a person, believed there was hold on, I lost my case. A world-class FBI team had investigated Hillary Clinton for a year, and all of them, to a person, believed there was no prosecutable case. Still, he described Lynch's behavior regarding the probe as, quote, very strange, in that she rejected calls to recuse herself from the case while not playing much of a role in the investigation. Quote, she chose a very strange position, that she would not remove herself, but that she would accept my recommendation about the case. In effect, she was removing herself, but not removing herself. Again, very strange. But here is the part that I find the most interesting. Comey also wrote that still classified information could have, quote, cast serious doubt on Lynch's ability to investigate Clinton. What? Classified information that has not been released could have possibly cast doubt on Lynch's ability to investigate Clinton, which really means Lynch's ability to be impartial while investigating Hillary Clinton. Because normally, it's the FBI doesn't really the FBI does the investigation, provides evidence to the Attorney General, and the Attorney General is the one that decides if there's a prosecutable case here. But Loretta Lynch wanted James Comey to be the arbiter of whether there was a prosecutable case here. And press the share button. I know it's Friday, but we want to get this out to more people. And I have a great original story, too. I did an interview about an hour ago. More environmental destruction by those oil goons at Energy Transfer Partners. So definitely press the share button. But what you have here, I'll read you a little more. So Comey says there's still classified information that would have cast, quote, serious doubt on her ability to investigate Clinton. He called that info a, quote, development still unknown to the American public to this day that in part convinced Comey to take a more active role in the probe. Comey added that, quote, the unverified material would have undoubtedly been used by political opponents to cast serious doubt on the Attorney General's independence in connection with the Clinton investigation, but provides no clues to the nature of his tantalizing revelation. The former top G-man also bristled when Lynch ordered him to call the probe into Clinton's emails, quote, a matter, rather than a, quote, investigation. Call it a matter, Comey quotes Lynch as telling him during the 2016 meeting. Why would I do that? He said, he replied. Just call it a matter, she snapped back. He said he believed she was parroting the Clinton campaign's efforts to dismiss the significance of the probe. Quote, the Attorney General seemed to be directing me to align me with the Clinton campaign strategy. Quote, the FBI didn't do matters, but he followed orders. Still, his grave concerns about Lynch prompted him to provide the public with an independent opinion about the investigation, a move that led to howls from Trump and the GOP, who accused him of circumventing the chain of command. Quote, I needed to visibly step away from Loretta Lynch and do something I never could have imagined before 2016. Having the FBI separately offer its views to the American people by making public my recommendation, that Clinton not be charged, and the thinking behind it. Americans, he argued, quote, needed and deserved transparency, and I believed that I had the independent reputation to step out front and take the hits. Yeah, the only problem with that, Mr. Comey, is you're saying that the Americans needed transparency and deserved transparency, but you're not giving us transparency. You're not giving us transparency. I mean, you just said, let me find it. You said Comey also wrote that still classified information could have, quote, cast serious doubt on Lynch's ability to investigate Clinton. He called that info a, quote, development still unknown to the American public to this day that in part convinced Comey to take a more active role in the probe. Well, how can you in one breath say you did what you did because the American people needed transparency, but in another breath say there's classified information? There's classified information that you can't release to the public that might have cast more doubt, on Loretta Lynch's ability to be impartial. So just to give you a little history lesson here as to Loretta Lynch's impartiality when it comes to the Clintons, here we go. This is from the Byrne Report. Loretta Lynch is beholden to the Clintons. Bill Clinton appointed Miss Lynch to serve as the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York in 1999, jump-starting her career with the White House. It isn't a well-known fact. Loretta Lynch was a litigation partner for 8 years at a Washington law firm that served the Clintons. Loretta Lynch was with the international law firm Hogan and Hartson, LLP, from March of 2002 to April of 2010. Lynch has refused to suggest her relation with the Clintons is a conflict of interest. Last Monday, Miss Lynch sat with Bill Clinton inside her plane for a half hour and said they discussed children, golf, and Janet Reno. Yeah, sure. According to one source, the FBI was on the tarmac just outside Lynch's plane telling everyone, including journalists, no photos, no pictures, no cell phones. Parentheses, does Loretta Lynch really get her own private plane as a government employee? There is some confusion as to who owns the plane she was flying on and used as a meeting place with Bill Clinton. So the important part here is this. She clearly has a cozy relationship with the Clintons. She was appointed by Bill Clinton to serve as U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, and she was with that firm. She was with a firm that served the Clintons for 8 years. 8 years. And she, she's then sitting on a plane with former President Bill Clinton talking about the grandkids and golf and Janet Reno while there is a federal criminal investigation into Hillary Clinton. Now, the reason this is important is not because I don't find joy in continuing to cover Hillary Clinton. To me, the sooner she's out of the news, the sooner I don't need to deal with her, the better. But it goes back to what I was talking about yesterday. I did a video on this ridiculous notion that we actually have a rule of law in this country because we don't have a rule of law. We have 3 legal systems, as I told you yesterday. One for the rich and the powerful, one for like white middle class people. Occasionally they get in trouble, but most of the time they get out of it. And one for poor people, black people, brown people, Native Americans that they get beat at, they get shot at, just for protesting. They get pulled over for a broken taillight and then thrown in jail for a year. I've seen it and heard it all. There's 3 legal systems. One for the powerful, where just don't get caught. And if you do get caught, as long as you keep the money coming, you won't go to jail. That's for the powerful, like Hillary Clinton. White middle class people, poor black, brown, Native Americans. So what's credible to me is James Comey is literally saying out loud that there is classified information that would cast serious doubt on Loretta Lynch's ability to be impartial in the investigation into the email investigation of Hillary Clinton. Why is that not a major thing? We already know that Loretta Lynch was trying to help Hillary Clinton by urging James Comey to call it a matter the FBI was looking into, not an investigation. And when Jim Comey said it's an investigation, Loretta Lynch just said, just call it a matter. We already know Loretta Lynch was on a plane with Bill Clinton. They were not talking about golf and grandkids and Janet Reno. Come on. Come on. The Brooklyn Bridge is near me. I got a bridge to sell you. And James Comey even said himself that normally the FBI doesn't give its own recommendation of whether someone should be prosecuted. The FBI does the investigation, hands over the information to the Department of Justice, the Attorney General, and the Attorney General makes a decision. But in this case, she was conflicted that Comey felt the need to do it himself. Why is this not a major news story? That at least one of the agencies involved with the Hillary Clinton investigation, the head of it, was clearly had a gaping conflict of interest. Gaping conflict of interest. So much so that she was urging the FBI director, just call it a matter, not an investigation. And the FBI director is literally saying, there's still classified information that would have cast serious doubt on Lynch's ability to investigate Clinton. He called the info a, quote, development still unknown to the American public to this day that in part convinced him to take a more active role. Well, I, for one, am saying I want to know what that information is. Why is that information classified? This is not information that is dangerous to the country. This is not information that, could open up the United States to a terrorist attack. Why is this information? Why is this information classified? Makes no sense. You know what also doesn't make any sense? Every time I think a good point, YouTube buffering starts going frozen and my feed starts freezing. That's interesting, don't you think? Every time I make an interesting point, YouTube's feed starts buffering and freezing. Very interesting, very interesting. Just saying. Do you notice that? That my feed keeps buffering? My Wi-Fi's working. Very interesting. Oliver Quinn. I concur. That's why we gotta get this going a little more. The more funds into patreon.com/JordanCharityReports, the more I could get in the field. And we're actually looking to create our own website and our own custom player, so we don't even bother with YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter anymore. So to wrap this up, you have the former FBI director saying on the record that there is classified information that would cast serious doubt on the former Attorney General who was appointed by Bill Clinton, used to work for a law firm that represented the Clintons, sat on a plane with Bill Clinton for a half hour while his wife was under federal criminal investigation. So there's classified information that we as the United States can't know why. Why shouldn't we know what that information is? Don't we need to know that to make sure that this investigation was on the up and up? Interesting. Oliver Quinn, maybe they were having an affair. Hey, we do know Bill likes women. And Bill's more of, I'd say, an open marriage kind of guy. You know? But, I don't like to get into the personal life of politicians. I don't care what Bill or Hillary does. But let me tell you something, folks. If I or you did what Hillary Clinton did, we'd be in jail. And the fact that, interesting, the Attorney General, Barack Obama's Attorney General, we all know how badly Barack Obama wanted Hillary Clinton to become president, tries to push the FBI director to belittle the investigation, make it seem like it's not as big as it was. So do that. She says, call it a matter, not an investigation. there's classified information that James Comey said, for whatever reason, can't be released that would cast serious doubt on her impartiality. And James Comey found no issue, that there was nothing to prosecute. Let's just say Hillary Clinton is a very, very lucky woman. And let's just say, as usual, if you got the money, if you got the power, if you're connected to the lobbyists, the donors, you ain't going to jail. From one hairy situation to one potentially dangerous situation. I like to criticize the corporate media, but my business partner Jen sent me this link earlier, and I was actually stunned. That this clip, that this guy was allowed on MSNBC. I believe he was on yesterday morning. This was one of the only guests that I've heard actually utter some sanity on Syria. And again, it's now Friday at 4:50 p.m. I hope nothing happens tonight. I hope nothing happens tonight. I hope nothing happens tomorrow. Interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting. As soon as I mentioned that there was a guest on MSNBC that ushered in some sanity, my YouTube started buffering again and freezing again. Very interesting. It's almost like there's a human with a button from YouTube doing something based on what I'm talking about. I digress. So I hope, it's almost 5 o'clock. I hope nothing happens tonight. I hope nothing happens this weekend. I hope nothing happens, period. But let me play you a guest on Morning Joe that actually had something smart to say in a sea of neocons and people that are endlessly hawking for war. Here we go.
Finding any chance, and the chances are slim to begin with, of progress in Syria.
So Jeffrey Sachs, chime in. This is very different than just a war between two countries. This is as convoluted as it gets and could get out of control. I don't think people might really conceptualize, maybe even not this president, how out of control this could escalate.
It's true, but I think we have to step back and not put this in partisan terms. This is a U.S. mistake that started 7 years ago. And I remember the day on your show when President Obama said, Assad must go. And I looked at you and Joe and I said, how's he going to do that? Where's the policy for that?
Right.
And we know they sent in the CIA to overthrow Assad. The CIA and Saudi Arabia together in covert operations tried to overthrow Assad. It was a disaster. Eventually it brought in both ISIS as a splinter group to the jihadists that went in. It also brought in Russia. So we have been digging deeper and deeper and deeper. What we should do now is get out and not continue to throw missiles, not have a confrontation with Russia. 7 years has been a disaster under Obama, continuing under Trump. This is what I would call the permanent state. This is the CIA, this is Pentagon, wanting to keep Iran and Russia out of Syria, but no way to do that. And so we have made a proxy war in Syria. It's killed 500,000 people, displaced 10 million, and I'll say predictably so, because I predicted it 7 years ago that there was no way to do this and that it would make a complete chaos. So what I would plead to President Trump is get out, like his instinct told him, by the way.
Before, yeah.
That was his instinct, but then all the establishment, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Pentagon, everybody said, no, that's irresponsible. But his instinct is right. Get out. We've done enough damage, 7 years. And now we really risk a confrontation with Russia that is extraordinarily dangerous, reckless.
Admiral Stavridis, President.
Whoa. What? I mean, who let that guy in the building? And you know, it's funny because I always say, like, help me get back in the field. Help me get back in the field so I can cover Flint and other things. I'll keep it real. I don't want to go to Syria. There's like a certain threshold of risk I'm willing to take. I'm not particularly interested in going to Syria, but I'll happily cover it here. I'm just keeping it real. But, I mean, that was so much sense spoken on a corporate national media network that I almost have to think like they mistakenly booked that guy, Jeffrey Sachs. Or like he snuck into the building, he snuck on set. And you got to give credit where credit is due. He's right. And by the way, for a moment, let that sink in, what he said. 500,000 to 600,000 innocent people have been killed because the U.S., like we've done elsewhere, has tried to topple another leader in another country. We've played this record before. We've done it in Iran, we tried it in Cuba, Venezuela, Peru. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. The U.S. trying to spread democracy, tries to go in and take out, Assad is a dangerous man. I'm not going to pretend he's not. And he has done some terrible things. But that's in another country. Yet we have orchestrated through, remember what he said, Barack Obama orchestrated this. Started with Obama. We've been doing this now for several years. Hundreds of thousands killed. 10 million displaced. All over the Middle East, Syrians are displaced. And now we want to double down. They're talking about dropping bombs on government headquarters. They're talking about dropping bombs on airfields, on chemical weapons headquarters. By the way, you think you just drop bombs where chemical weapons are stored and it doesn't cause a big problem for the wider population? Nicholas says it's not only in another country, but it's also on the other side of the world. Correct. I'm going to play you a little bit more of that because obviously since this guy made a good point, then MSNBC had to have somebody on, a neocon, to make a bad point. So here we go.
President Trump has said, going back now several months, that we should get out of Syria. That was his advice to Barack Obama many years ago, get out of Syria. What are the consequences if you walk away right now from Syria without responding to a chemical attack from the regime there?
Yeah, I think there are two problems with Professor Sachs's comments, although I certainly feel that sense of Middle East fatigue that we all have. And of course, it's not just Syria, it's Iraq, it's Afghanistan. There have been a whole series of things that have generated the kind of feeling that says, let's just pull back, let's get out of the world, let's come back to the United States. I think there are two fundamental problems with that. One is the use of chemical weapons, I think, really does demand a response from the international community at a level of military strike. So I do support a strike here. And secondly, and I think Professor Sachs is correct to say this is a massive humanitarian disaster. I think the numbers are actually 600,000 dead and 14 million displaced. So I'm in complete agreement with him on the scale of this, but I would like to see the United States try and be part of the solution. And here, what I would do is look back to the Balkans in the 1990s, which looked somewhat like Syria of today, and there was eventually an international solution, and it included the U.S. and Russia working together. We got a long way to go to get there, but if we just step away from it, as attractive as that feels to us, I don't think it's the right decision, either for the country or for the international community.
I don't think it's attractive, but I think we have to understand how this happened. This happened because of us.
Thank you.
600,000 are not just incidental. We started a war to overthrow a regime. It was covert. It was Timber Sycamore. People can look it up. The CIA operation, together with Saudi Arabia. Still it's shrouded in secrecy, which is part of the problem in our country. A major war effort shrouded in secrecy, never debated by Congress, never explained to the American people, signed by President Obama, never explained. And this created chaos. And so just throwing more missiles in right now is not a response.
My only concern...
We need to go, it's, by the way, not to walk away, to go to the UN Security Council, as the Admiral says, to agree with Russia on a strategy for ending the fight. But ending the fight means that we stop trying to overthrow a government, that we stop trying to support rebels who are committed to overthrowing the government. That is where this war continues, because we, to this day, back rebels that are trying to overthrow a government contrary to international law, contrary to the UN Charter, contrary to common sense, contrary to practical path. We can't do it. And it's just creating ongoing crisis to the extent of facing an imminent confrontation with Russia.
So I think this is a
What
important...
is this? I mean, I'm convinced he snuck into the building. He snuck into the building. There's no other explanation for why MSNBC allowed this man. Why MSNBC allowed this man on their air, right? But he's right. Not only is the United States in large part responsible for those 600,000 dead. I don't know the exact number, but 14 million displaced, one of the guests says. But what we've been doing, now we're talking about doubling down on that. It's madness. It's complete madness. Complete madness. We need to get the hell out of Syria. We need to stop trying to, topple democratically elected leaders, and we need to start focusing on toppling our democratically corrupt leaders here in the United States. That's what we need to be doing. Trump is probably going to be dropping missiles on several different locations in Syria, and there's no reason for it other than to be blusterous and exude power and satisfy the neocons and distract the public probably from, the Mueller investigation. But this isn't only dangerous for the Syrian people, it's dangerous for the United States because this breeds more terrorism. This creates more terrorism. When you keep on bombing, and interfering, and basically, seizing other countries, it breeds hatred towards the United States. It's not that complicated. I'm not defending Al-Qaeda or ISIS, but there's a reason these people are radicalized. There's a reason they're radicalized, and the United States is giving it to them. And I just want to also show you something. The corporate media never has a bond. They call him a crackpot. I don't think he's a crackpot. Ron Paul said something that makes a lot of sense to me. Assad gassing his own people is total nonsense. Former Congressman Ron Paul has strongly argued following the alleged chemical gas attack blamed on the Syrian government that it makes no logical sense for Assad to order a gas attack, and has called the accusations a telltale sign of a false flag attack meant to provide justification for the U.S. military to maintain a presence in Syria. Quote, an incident will occur and somebody will get blamed, and it's usually a false flag, said Paul. Ooh, right now, recently, it's all been in Syria. Assad did it, explained the former congressman. No proof at all. No proof at all. Are we buffering again? Oh, they buffer when I say something they don't like. So he went on to say, quote, the way the people that perpetuate these false flags say that Assad is gassing his own people, at the same time, he's winning the war, and the people are flocking back in to go to the territories that he has returned to the government of Syria, explained Paul. Quote, but nevertheless, he's out there gassing his own people, which makes no sense whatsoever, and fewer and fewer people are believing this. Paul, who founded the Ron Paul Institute for Peace and Prosperity in 2013 after leaving the U.S. House, presented his analysis via the Ron Paul Liberty Report. describing how foreign policy goals related to Saudi Arabia and Iran and Russia, as well as the influence of neoconservatives, oil interests, and the military-industrial complex play into the current paradigm we see playing out in Syria. He went on to say, quote, "This whole idea that all of a sudden Assad's gassing his own people, I think, is total nonsense," pointing out that over and over again, the U.S. has claimed that the Syrian or Russian government has been complicit in previous gas attacks in Syria, and the alleged poisoning of Sergei and Yulia Skripal in London, but, quote, "nothing panned out," or as Paul put it, one fake news story after another. I mean, I don't know how else to say it, but I think when I don't know something, I tend to go with common sense. And as Rania Khalek, a Middle East-based journalist who I interviewed, you could listen to that interview. It's up on the channel here. We did about a half-hour interview / podcast. As many other people with brains, Max Blumenthal, Ben Norton, Adam Johnson, Jimmy Dore, has said, why would Assad gas his people now? I mean, essentially, the Syrian government has retaken like 90% of the country. The rebels are basically on their last legs. So I'm hoping it's a little after 5 o'clock, East Coast. I'm very much hoping that this weekend goes by with no missiles and no bombs and no more bluster. I know CNN wants it. I know MSNBC wants it. Of course, the New York Times wants it, the Washington Post. But we need to break this cycle. It needs to stop. So that's what's going on in Syria. Now, I did a little original reporting today. I did a short interview. So, as you know, Energy Transfer Partners was the parent company of the Dakota Access Pipeline. It's the parent company of a natural gas pipeline in Texas called the Trans-Pecos Pipeline. It's a parent company of the Rover Pipeline in Ohio. I mean, they've got so many pipelines, I can't keep track. And it's also one of the oil companies involved with the Mariner East 2 pipeline that's going through Pennsylvania. It's the Mariner East 2 pipeline. And of course, I'd like to go back in the field and cover these things. So if you got $1 a month, $2 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month, your contributions are going to help me get back in the field. I'm getting a little cabin fever here going from my apartment all the time. And please press the share button. YouTube is doing its darndest to suppress my content. I just had a conversation with Mike from the Humanist Report. Same stuff happening to him. We have a larger audience than is watching. The problem is most of the audience does not know when I'm live, unfortunately. And they're not going to get this kind of news, which I'm about to tell you. So Energy Transfer Partners is one of the companies involved with the Mariner East 2 pipeline. So I'm going to read you just a little bit about the Mariner East 2 pipeline. This is from an opinion piece in the Philadelphia Daily Inquirer. Sunoco's Mariner East 2 pipeline has been a slow-motion disaster for communities across Pennsylvania, leaving many residents asking the same question, where is Governor Wolf? The answer, sadly, is simple. He's siding with Sunoco Logistics and Energy Transfer Partners over the residents of the state, but pressure on him to stop the pipeline is building. This 350-mile project is designed to carry highly volatile liquids from the fracking fields of Ohio and western Pennsylvania to the Marcus Hook facility, where they will be shipped across the Atlantic Ocean to European petrochemical plants to make plastic. The pipeline offers little to no value to Pennsylvanians, is a disaster for the planet, and puts communities at unacceptable levels of risk. More than 40 schools are within the immediate blast zone of this pipeline, and Sunoco and Energy Transfer Partners has a terrible safety record. Construction has been a catastrophe. Communities near the pipeline have dealt with dozens of drilling spills, contamination of several private water wells, the puncturing of an aquifer in Chester County, and massive sinkholes forming just steps from their doors. And as each crisis has unfolded, these people, like so many others harmed by fracking and pipelines across the state, have been let down by the Wolf administration. So that's a little bit about the actual pipeline. So on Sunday, Energy Transfer Partners, let me back up. there has been a forest camp. It's called Camp White Plains, I believe. Let me make sure I have that right. No, excuse me, Camp White Pine. Camp White Pine has been a forest defense camp, and there's been dozens of, call them protesters or defense or foresters, whatever, that have been camping out in the forest in Pennsylvania to make sure that Energy Transfer Partners cannot cut down the forest to put their pipeline through. Well, this is what they did on Sunday. That is one of the giant trees that forest defenders have been protecting for about, I believe, 2 years now. So I spoke with the woman whose property that was to give you a little bit of the story. Let's listen. Her name is Elise Gerhart. Elise Gerhart, this is her family's property in Pennsylvania. Here we go. If my computer works.
I was born and raised here, and yeah, I was one of the folks that was in the trees 2 years ago when we started the blockade against Mariner East Pipeline.
And what are they're trying, obviously, to cut down the forest so that they can put the natural gas pipeline through there?
Right, they cut most of it 2 years ago, but then we had a blockade for just about 740 days, maybe 741.
Mm-hmm.
And then just the other day, they snuck in at the crack of dawn on a Sunday morning and came in and cut down the trees that had the platforms in them for those 2 years.
And
so now they're trying to forge ahead with the rest of the pipeline construction. Like today, they had about 20 guys on the property here. It's my family's property here in Huntington County, Pennsylvania, and they're trying to do like the tree clearing and that kind of stuff today. I mean, they've been constructing all around us except for on this property for about a year at this point.
And do they have permits or permission to cut the trees down?
Not from us, and not technically with any of like the environmental regulations that exist in Pennsylvania, but that's what they're doing anyway. And you know, we're still fighting them on the permits, and we're not the only ones. There's a number of organizations that are also still fighting them on the permitting for the project, which came from the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. But you know, we believe that those permits were issued illegally because there's no way to build these kind of pipelines in a way that actually respects existing environmental laws.
Right. And real quick, you all over there have seen, remnants of tiger swan and surveillance. Could you tell me about that?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's something that's been going on for a while. Probably just about for the last year, like really since we started Camp White Pine, which was like sort of permanent encampment that was supporting the tree sits and still is in existence. But yeah, I mean, we've had everything from helicopter flyovers to drones to being followed, having our pictures taken and plastered on the internet with like terms like eco-terrorists being thrown around. We now are having the property adjacent to us. There are little security shacks that are set up, and last night there were some security guys sleeping in them. So it appears that we're under some 24/7 surveillance, and I mean, I can't say with 100% certainty that those guys work for Tiger Swan, but we know that Tiger Swan is employed with ETP. They have a business license in Pennsylvania that they got back in 2016. They've identified themselves on the ground to other people who live along the route of the Mariner East Pipeline as being Tiger Swan. So all signs point to Tiger Swan right now.
And to be clear, these trees and this forest is on your property. Is that correct?
land, yeah, my folks bought it back in 1982, and I've lived here my whole life, so.
And about how many people would you say have been part of Camp White Pine?
I mean, realistically, probably only a few dozen that have really, come through and actually been here on the ground, but I'd say that number is probably a lot bigger in spirit. We've had a lot of sort of remote support coming from all over the place. So,
And
yeah.
And sorry, one last question. What are the major waterways there? Near where the pipeline will be going through.
So on the piece of land where we live, there's actually springs and small streams that are tributaries of the Juniata watershed, which is part of the Susquehanna watershed, which eventually winds up in the Chesapeake Bay. So if we're in one of those places where it's like we don't have a giant river running through here, but we're at the beginnings of that watershed. We're like the westernmost part of the Susquehanna watershed.
Mm-hmm. So it does flow into the Chesapeake Bay, which definitely is a main source for a lot of people.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, so there you have it, folks. You got Energy Transfer Partners once again, destructing as much of America as they possibly can. They don't care about the Missouri River, which serves water to 20 million people. They don't care about people's families' properties. They just, even without permits, even without permission to cut down trees, they go in, cut down the trees on this young woman and her family's land. They want to ram a natural gas, liquefied, fracked gas pipeline through what's left of United States forest land, which once it explodes, it can seep into streams, creeks that will stream into the Chesapeake Bay. I'd like to get back out there in the field to cover these things and get this out to more people. So, just saying. It's one thing to cover these stories from the confines of my apartment. It's another thing to get out there and show you what's going on. Because part of good journalism actually inspires people to take action. I had many, many people, I'd say probably anywhere between 50 and 100 people, came up to me at Standing Rock in my 7 times there telling me the work they were seeing from me and TYT was why they came to Standing Rock. So we need more journalists on the ground to cover these things, like Camp White Pine and other, there's the Rover pipeline going through Ohio. Because we don't have a country that's made up of laws, right? We have a country that's made up of oligarchs and plutocrats. So an oil company knows, permits, get the fuck out of here. We'll do what we want. We own these politicians. You fine us. The fines they have to pay are like pennies for them. But these fine people in Pennsylvania and elsewhere are having their land, and it's not just the forest. I covered when I was at the Young Turks, they were digging up cowboy-wearing conservatives' backyards, putting the Trans-Pecos pipeline through people's backyards. One woman, I was on her ranch interviewing her, the pipeline was literally 400 yards from her window. If it explodes, she's dead. But you're not going to see that in the corporate media. You think the corporate media cares about an oil company illegally cutting down people's trees? Not a sexy story, right? Not a sexy story. Well, I care. And the people that are going to be joining my network, when we launch that network, they're going to care. Because the people that I have interest in joining when we launch this network, they're going to be the people that want to give the microphone back to the people. They're going to be reporters that want to give the microphone back to you. They're going to be the reporters that want to cover things that everyone else is ignoring. We'll go in the forest, we'll go in the river, we'll go wherever the hell we need to go. So thank you very much. That was Elise Gerhart, and I'll keep in touch with her and stay on this story because I had no idea until they sent me those images today that this even happened. Got one more story today. It's 5:20, so I expect when I get off, all of you to do your Friday night activities, yoga, maybe a little smoking, maybe a little drinking, maybe a little meditation. I'm going to go have a cocktail. It's been a busy week. It's been a busy week. So, obviously, I've been covering Flint quite a bit. You have the governor of Michigan lying to the people, telling them that the water is now restored in Flint, and the water is now restored, so we don't need to provide free water bottles to the people of Flint anymore because they could just drink the tap water. I told you why that's nonsense. I interviewed Melissa Mays, who is a leading resident and an activist. What do you use to stream? A program called OBS and Joycast. So really, what's very interesting here, let me get out of there. You have protests happening in Flint, no coverage of those protests. A little local media, national media might write an article, but that's it. You have very little national media coverage on the fact that the governor is taking away water from impoverished residents of Flint, from impoverished people. He's taking away the water because he doesn't want to pay for them. Those poor people, those poor black people, poor white people, fuck them. We did enough for them after poisoning them. So that's gotten no media attention. I've been trying to keep the focus on it. And there's been very little media attention about the fact that now, if you recall when I was at the Young Turks, I was covering a town hall last year. It was a town hall by the mayor, and 6 residents were arrested. 6 residents were arrested at the town hall for the crime of voicing their frustration with their government. Do you remember that? They became known as the Flint 6. They were yelling on the microphone because they were still poisoned. At that time, it was 3 years later. Now we're going on 4 years later. April 25th is the 4-year anniversary of the Flint water crisis when they switched from the Detroit River to the Detroit water system to the Flint River. So one woman had bruises down her arm. Leah Palladino was her name. Her husband was also arrested. And Leah got the bruises because a police officer rammed her against the wall while handcuffing her. Another man, he was 19 at the time, got arrested for screaming at a cop, "This is fascism." They cuffed him. Ooh, I have something on my shirt. Another woman got arrested because a cop says she slammed the door on him when she really just went out and the door shut behind. I mean, these were police on seriously high testosterone. And we saw, like, Netflix has a documentary series called Flint Town, and it's very, like, from the police's point of view and adoring of the police. I'm not in love with it. Yeah, the police have a tough job in Flint. They are very, very understaffed. I get it. So we're not slamming all police here. But at that town hall that I covered, the police were out of control. Out of control. And double check, make sure you subscribe to this channel and that you've hit the bell, or you won't be notified of live streams or videos. YouTube feels, oh no, if they're just subscribed, it doesn't mean they want your videos. They're just subscribers. So we're going to make them click the bell too. So make sure you click that bell. So these 6 residents, fortunately for them, they had felony charges hanging over their head, but they were never charged. And now the ACLU of Michigan is suing the city of Flint and the police department on behalf. So that image is the bruises that one of the women, Leah Palladino, got. Let me read you just some of this story here. A lawsuit filed by the American Civil Liberties Union alleges the arrest of 4 water protesters during an April 20th, 2017 town hall meeting at a church on Flint's north side was a violation of their constitutional rights. Tony Palladino, Leah Palladino, and Abel Delgado of Flint, and Susan Whalen of Detroit are named as plaintiffs in the suit filed Thursday, April 20th against the city of Flint, Flint Police Chief Tim Johnson, and several individual officers. It claims Flint police, quote, arrested 6 individuals at the town hall meeting for engaging in First Amendment protected speech, including verbally protesting the government's use of police power, making statements critical of the government during the public comment period, expressing approval of comments made by others during the meeting, criticizing police action, using an expletive in front of an officer outside the meeting, and or videotaping officers outside of the meeting.
Exceptional experience.
Ooh.
Plan on Greater Lansing.
Go away. Sorry. So, however, the lawsuit claims at no time did the group disrupt the meeting or, quote, impede or interfere with the ability of police to conduct an arrest. The group was held overnight in the Flint City lockup and released the following morning. No charges were filed by the Genesee County Prosecutor's Office against any of the people arrested. Greg Gibbs, one of the group's attorneys, argues the arrests were unconstitutional. Quote, it was actually a government meeting, he said of the gathering hosted by the city of Flint at House of Prayer Missionary Baptist Church. Even though it's in a religious facility, it's still a public forum which has the full protection of the First Amendment. The lawsuit claims Palladino Jr. spoke to the armed officers about enforcement of religious rules on attendees and, quote, tried to resolve the situation outside the sanctuary. But law enforcement insisted on them following the guidelines. Officers stopped men wearing hats from entering the church sanctuary unless they removed them, and men who would not remove their hats were asked to leave. The issue led to arguments between members of the public and police. Johnson didn't... What the fuck? Hold on. Go away. Johnson did address the crowd prior to the meeting, stating, I just want to make sure this meeting goes off the way it's supposed to and that everybody's respecting everybody. Actually, that's not what he said. That's Flint Journal, which is basically a stenographer for the police. He actually said, I ain't fooling around tonight. Oh, here we go. Excuse me. As I bashed them, they did quote it right. Please don't be in here trying to disrupt this meeting, because if you do, I'm going to escort you out, and I'm only going to take you to the back door, and then you're going to jail. I'm not going to play with nobody tonight, he said. Gibbs said Leah Palladino was slammed down twice on a desk by police officers in the common area outside the sanctuary and then forcibly placed in the back of a paddy wagon for using a profane word. He said there's not an issue with using a church for a public forum, such as a town hall meeting, but it's a violation. Enforce the rules of those institutions on anyone in attendance and make arrests with no probable cause. The lawsuit also claims a violation of the Fourth Amendment regarding illegal search and seizures. Quote, it's nonsense for the chief of police to punish people for exercising their constitutional rights, said Gibbs, adding the lawsuit seeks to enforce policies to prevent the guidelines of a religious institution being used at a public meeting. Quote, he can be Mr. Stern as he wants to be, but he's got to follow the constitutional rules like everybody else. Well, I was there. I was the only national reporter at that church that night. My former cameraman, I should say, Ty, was also there. He got great video and shots of what the police were doing, the ridiculous arrest on one guy because he said this is fascism. You call it what it is, you're arrested. It was fascism. Like I said, emotions and tensions were high. These are poisoned poor people that have not gotten relief or remedies from their government at that time, during that town hall, for 3 years. For 3 years. Now they're going on 4 years. April 25th is 4 years. And don't listen to this criminal governor. The water's not safe. And I've been working on an investigative piece for a long time about the water there. So what you have here, and this goes back to what I was talking about yesterday, we either have a real rule of law in America for everybody, or we just have out of control police, out of control politicians, out of control corporations that get to do whatever the hell they want. whether it's cutting down trees without permits, like Energy Transfer Partners, whether it's oil police in North Dakota shooting grenades at unarmed people, or whether it's police in Flint arresting 6 residents who, for the crime of getting just a little too loud at the police. Well, you know what? It's protected by the First Amendment. And you know what? They're lucky all the poison people are doing is getting loud. Those people, one had bruises on her arm. They sat in lockup overnight. I think they got out at like 9 a.m. They didn't even go before a judge. Their rights as Americans were discarded, and their rights as impoverished, poisoned individuals were also infringed upon. So I think it's a good thing that they're suing. I interviewed, when I was at the Young Turks, that attorney for the ACLU. He's a good attorney. We cannot normalize this fascism. We cannot let the police or the politicians that back the police department or the corporations that buy up the politicians to get away with intimidation or brutality against people who are exercising their First Amendment rights. It's not about whether it was in a church or elsewhere. It doesn't really matter. Let's say it wasn't in a church and it was at City Hall. You don't have a right to arrest people who are yelling. There's a difference between voicing frustration on a microphone and being a little nuisance versus disorderly conduct, making people feel unsafe, threatening people. Those are arrestable crimes. But if residents are just hooting and hollering, let them. They deserve to be heard. Frankly, where I'm from, I live on the Lower East Side of Manhattan right now, this would have been fixed in 6 weeks. It's 4 years later, it's still not fixed. And why this is important, it's not relevant. It doesn't matter if you don't live in Flint. This is about all of us. Because what happens when something happens to you in your city? Maybe it's water, maybe it's something else. Are you going to be able to peacefully protest? Are you going to be able to peacefully lobby your representatives to fix the problem? Are you going to be able to deliver, the crime of raising your voice or expressing frustration? I don't want to hear from Joe Scarborough and these people about the rule of law is under attack because of Donald Trump. Yeah, it's worse under Donald Trump, but it's been bad for years. The police are out of control in America. And I do know some police officers who are not out of control. It's not all of them, but it's a hell of a lot of them. It's a hell of a lot of them. Poisoned people deserve empathy. They deserve change. They deserve the problem to be fixed. And frankly, they deserve Medicare for all, for life. So I'll follow this lawsuit where it goes, because I don't think this is just a lawsuit about Flint. I think this is a lawsuit for all of us. Like I said, this cannot be normalized. This kind of brutality and threats and intimidation by police and powerful people towards poor people, poisoned people, powerless people cannot be normalized. It's been normalized before Trump. Reminder, Standing Rock happened while Barack Obama was the president. As I end my report today, a few things. Number one, I'll say it one more time. If you've already subscribed to my Patreon, thank you so much. Your support is going to keep me independent. Your support is going to get me out there, get me back out there. If you're not subscribed, appreciate you considering it. I've got new podcasts up. I've got new diaries up, and we're going to be adding more things to the Patreon as we go. You could subscribe as low as $1 a month, $2 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month. If you don't know if you're going to be able to pay your rent this month, I don't want your money. But if you got a couple bucks, I'm not asking so that I could go on vacation. I'm asking so I could get back in the field and report for you, to you. and hire other reporters. As humbly as I could say, I don't think you're getting this kind of news anywhere else. I don't think you're getting the truth in many other places. I don't think you're getting these original interviews with real people being attacked by the government, being attacked by corporate America. So for those of you who have the means, even if it's $1, $2, $5, I want to create an army. I want to create a military. I want to create a media revolution. And I need as many of you as possible. 72 are watching today. The more people that subscribe, the more money we have to get back out there and grow this. Grow this. I also ask you, go to my website, jordanchariton.com, put in your email so we could grow our email list. As we launch this company, hopefully by summer, we want to be able to directly communicate with you. Directly communicate with you. I don't want to be screwed by YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, who might tell you I'm live, they might not, who might deliver my videos to you, they might not. No. Hell no. jordanchariton.com, put in your email. Put in your email. And also, don't forget, I'm going to be releasing more chapters of my book, Corporate Con Job. The next chapter on the brutality at Standing Rock. I don't want to say the exact date. I think it's coming out this coming week. We'll figure out a date. So we're going to be dropping that. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, not just to subscribe to this channel, click the bell too. Share this video. Share this video. Mwah. Peace.